This lesson looks at using hyphens, which are those little dashes usually to the right of the 0 on the keyboard. We'll cover how hyphens are used in compound adjectives, in compound nouns, and with prefixes. Don't worry, that's less complicated than it looks. Okay, let's start with compound adjectives. The first thing we need to cover then is what is a compound adjective. Well, a compound adjective is a single adjective made up of more than one word. So look at these examples. Let's look at the first one. We've got 8-seater, which is a compound adjective, i.e. a single adjective made up of more than one word that's describing the word taxi. 3-page document, 24-hour service, silver service tray, free-range eggs, far too chatty individual. Now these are all examples of compound adjectives, and you can see that they're joined together using hyphens to show that they're single adjectives. Let's look at a real example. Harry the Android is a Cambridge-based villain, 2 words joined together with a hyphen, making it a single adjective, a compound adjective, who earned his nickname after a high-speed, compound adjective, chase, a high-speed chase, left him with a fused neck. So why do we have to put hyphens in compound adjectives? Well, they make it easier to read the text, and they showcase your writing skills a little, so a bit of an opportunity to show off. But also they remove the possibility for ambiguity. Let's look at this third idea in a little bit more detail. Okay, let's look at metal detector. That's just a normal adjective and a normal noun. Okay, here's a metal detector. In fact, it's a small one. In fact, it's a light metal detector, handheld. Here's a bigger one. This is a heavy metal detector. Now let's look at this with a compound adjective, a heavy metal detector. Now this is something that detects heavy metals. That's a completely different idea. In fact, because this one's handheld, it's a light heavy metal detector. So can you see how hyphens are able to eliminate the ambiguity between heavy metal detector without a hyphen and heavy metal detector with a hyphen? Let's look at a couple of more examples. Small business grant. Now, that is a small grant given for business purposes. But what about small business grant, the hyphenated version? That could be a huge grant given to a small business. And what about this? Fast evolving lifestyle. I mean, that's a lifestyle that's hectic, it's fast, rock star-like, and it's evolving, so it's changing. What about a fast evolving lifestyle? That's just a lifestyle that's changing quickly. Can you see how the hyphen eliminates the ambiguity? Okay, that was hyphens in compound adjectives. Now let's look at hyphens in compound nouns. This is quite a similar idea, but let's just talk about what compound nouns are. A compound noun is a single noun made up of 2 or more words. So here are some examples: water bottle, pen friend, passerby, cooking oil, paperclip. And you can see that the hyphen joins the words to make it absolutely clear that we're talking about a single entity. But not all compound nouns are hyphenated. Some compound nouns exist in the hyphenated version, a 2-word version, and a 1-word version. But some compound nouns don't allow the 1-word version. Let me show you what I mean. So water bottle, as well as the hyphenated version, also exists in the 2-word version. But the 1-word version is a spelling mistake. With pen friend, all 3 versions are acceptable. With passerby, the two-word version is also acceptable, but the one-word version is a spelling mistake. With cooking oil, it's the same deal. And with paperclip, all three versions are acceptable. So where does that leave you? Well, the best advice is try the one-word version, and if your spell checker doesn't allow it, then you have a choice between the hyphenated version and the two-word version. In that case, I would advise using the hyphenated version because it just makes your text a little bit easier to read. Let's look at a real-life example. Behind every successful man stands a surprised mother-in-law. There's our compound noun, and the words are joined together with hyphens to make it absolutely clear that it's a single entity and to make it easier to read. So why do we put hyphens in compound nouns? It's the same list as before with compound adjectives. Makes the text easier to read, gives you a chance to show off a little bit, but it also removes the possibility for ambiguity. Let's examine this idea of removing ambiguity. Let's look at laughing gas without a hyphen and laughing gas with a hyphen. Now, laughing gas without a hyphen could be gas that's laughing. Doesn't seem very likely, but it is feasible from an English perspective. While laughing gas with a hyphen makes it absolutely clear that we're talking about nitrous oxide, laughing gas. What about this example? A wire fastener and a wire fastener. Now, there really is ambiguity here. A wire fastener without a hyphen is a fastener made of wire, while a wire fastener with a hyphen is a fastener for wires. And can you see how the hyphen eliminates the ambiguity in this case? So that was hyphens in compound nouns. Next, let's look at hyphens with prefixes. And unfortunately, this has got its little quirks as well. So let's start by reminding ourselves what a prefix is. A prefix is a half word, for example, anti, ex, post, or pre, that's placed before a word to modify its meaning. There we go. Proactive, prehistoric, ultraviolet, all with a prefix. Most prefix words can be written with or without the hyphen after the prefix, and that's the quirk. So here are those same words without hyphens, and all versions are acceptable. So the big question becomes, when do you use a hyphen after a prefix? Well, here's some overarching guidance. Try to avoid a hyphen with a prefix. However, if you feel the word looks too unwieldy without a hyphen, or if your spell checker highlights it as wrong without a hyphen, then add a hyphen. So let's look at this. Anti-aircraft. It's correct. But it does look a little unwieldy. So let's shove a hyphen in. Yes, that looks better. Happy days. Let's try another one. Co-owner. Try it without the hyphen. No. Your spell checker will not like that. So you do not have a choice. You have to write co-owner with a hyphen. So that was some overarching guidance. But let's look at the rules a bit more specifically. Well, use a hyphen with a proper noun. So un-American, pro-Nazi. Do not allow the same vowel to double up. So re-enter and semi-industrious. But you can double up with an O if the spell checker allows it. So coordinate, you don't need a hyphen. Cooperate, you don't need a hyphen. But co-owner, as we've covered, you do need a hyphen because your spell checker will not allow that word. And you can let different vowels double up. So proactive is fine and reactivate is fine. Remember, you're trying not to use a hyphen. But you must use a hyphen with the prefixes ex and self. And then the final thing is that you've got to eliminate ambiguity every single time. So if you mean recover, then as in to cover again, then you have to use the one on the left. You can't use recover because that's a word in its own right. And if you mean repress, as in to press something again, like a shirt, then you have to use the hyphen because you can't use repress because that's a different word in its own right. So in summary, hyphens are used in compound adjectives. It is a 3-page document about heavy water and heavy water reactors. Now I've deliberately put heavy water in twice just to make it clear that it's only hyphenated when it's used in a compound adjective. So here we've got heavy water, a single adjective, which is modifying reactors. But the time it's used before that, it's not an adjective. It doesn't need to be hyphenated. Hyphens are also used in compound nouns. My mother-in-law uses way too much cooking oil. Now this sentence could have been written without any hyphens, but those hyphens just group those as single entities and actually make it a little bit easier and nicer to read. And hyphens are used with prefixes. So his ex-wife, and remember there are times when you have to use a prefix, and this is one, who was a co-owner, and this is another time you have to put a prefix in, refused to cooperate. And remember, the overarching guidance is try not to put a prefix in, and if your spell checker allows it and you think it looks okay, then that's the version you should use. Thanks for watching, and be sure to check out some of our other videos on grammarmonster.com. You'll also find us on Twitter and on Facebook.